Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello and welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me Dr. Tara Perry. She is an amazing doctor that gets into a lot of things that are very interesting to me. Her business is Core Trauma Transformation, and I'm going to let her do her bio because so many credentials that I can't even remember them all, even if I tried. So, Dr. Tara, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Amber. I'm excited to join you. I love people that are helping people with anxiety because it's and trauma because it's a big issue these days. So for 23 years, I did acupuncture and nutritional medicine. I was in Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, and Belmont Shore, taught at UCLA and Emperor's College. And right before COVID, I found that I'm really good at helping people go into their subconscious mind, which scientists now know is 90 to 95% of our brain, and debug the traumas, the PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, the addictions, whatever it is, and put in new neural pathways. We are surprisingly computer-like, and in order to change a pattern, it really needs to be A, deleted, and B, written over. So that's a metaphor for kind of the work that I do. And I've been blissfully excited with the results that people are getting.
Yeah, this is part of the reason why I was so attracted to you and to your story and to your work and what you're doing, is because I have found a fascination with the brain. And just the first time that you and I talked, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so, it's enlightening and it's so interesting to me. So I'm really excited for us to kind of dig into some of that and share maybe how you can, how your work can even help, or your resources can even help my listeners. So without further ado, do you want to kind of jump into some of the things that you do, some of the people you work with, and possibly even some stories that you've seen?
Absolutely. Yeah. When you look at what people recover from quickly, it's inspiring and also educational to see, oh, wow, you don't need to be in therapy necessarily for 20, 30 years. I find that just pushing stuff around the conscious mind and revisiting the old unwanted feelings time and time again doesn't really accomplish what people want to accomplish. Unless there's something known as a secondary gain, which I probably talked about on your show. So there's people that really want to get healthy, and then there's people that have something going on that's a benefit to them. So it is important to distinguish between the two. So when I do my intake with people, when people get on Zoom with me to find out, where they're at and, where they are and where they want to go, we kind of explore those things just in a brief way, so we can see what the problem's costing them and, what their life would look like without the problem. So once we get really clear on that and understand that this is, an 8, 9, or a 10 need to change and an 8, 9, or a 10 commitment to change, then we can make that happen, because the reptilian portion of the brain is the part of the brain that likes to go back to the old patterns. And again, that's the computer analogy. So once the programming's in there, you need to both delete it, but then it's still there unless you overwrite it with something else. So, for example, I worked with a gal whose husband contacted me. Her name's Julie. She's on my Instagram and my YouTube channel. She was attacked by a dog, a Rottweiler, and had to go through 6 jaw surgeries, and was living in pain, fear. She was at risk of having to go to the hospital every time she ate because she developed a choking disorder. She's a gorgeous woman with 3 beautiful children. So this was a real burden on the family. And she knew, she had been going to doctor's visits and living in that constant fear. So this was a no-brainer for her. She came in her first session. She knew this was the answer for her. It was nicely resolved after the first session. I do work with people over 90 days with 3 sessions currently, although I may shift that. I do keep noticing that, there's always refinements that I think, oh gosh, it can be even better if I do this, or it can be even better if we structure it this way. I have a weekly support group that people get on so they can hear other people's stories and have that really nice support container. Because truly, when people are going through a healing process, they want to know, gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not weird. I'm not strange, especially with anxiety. I mean, it's it's so crazy that, even if you're a very, very accomplished person, often we look at ourselves and go, oh, I'm not enough. I haven't accomplished enough. You know, people don't like me as much as I need them to like me. So going back to Julie, she, in the first session, she was able to reset that alarm system, because people that are living in constant fight or flight, that alarm system is constantly on. And that has real damage to the physical body, emotional body, um, uh, every part of every aspect of yourself, because your body isn't designed to live in constant fear. It's designed to have that go on when you need it. So when you're running from real danger, or you need to turn the car, really quickly to avoid something, that's what it's designed for. It's not designed to be going off 24/7, 365. And for a huge amount of us, we are living in that. So that needs to get dialed way back so that the parasympathetic system kicks in. It's like a light switch. But in parasympathetic, your digestive system is functioning, your immune system is functioning, your hormonal system is functioning. And that's where that would be a real one of the biggest reasons to do this kind of work, is because you can't live in fight or flight all the time. It just, your relationships don't work out. You don't attract money. You don't attract opportunities. You don't, your physical body starts to fall apart. You can't biologically, emotionally, spiritually function in that world. You got to dial that alarm system back down to nothing. In fact, I was just working with somebody, and that was the languaging that we always come up with different languaging for different people, because there's different metaphors. And so I'm really just the tour guide. I let them come up with the language for the most part. Sometimes I'll test out a couple of things and they'll go, yeah, that's it. But it has to be right for the client. It doesn't matter what I think. I'm just the tour guide. They're the hero walking the journey. Just the other day, it was all about turning those alarms off so that this person could function. They texted me yesterday and said, oh my gosh, she says that was the most amazing breakthrough ever. This woman had been through, I mean, she works in this world. She does, craniosacral work. She's been swimming in these waters for over 50 years. So she knows the lay of the land really well. In fact, I met her at a very advanced meditation course, but she still had this issue that was stuck in there. And it's, again, you can do a lot of stuff, but sometimes it takes being taken by the hand and led back to that memory, that imprint, that onset that planted the seed in the first place. In Chinese medicine, which is my background, we're always trained to take things out by the root, to get to the root problem. Because if you remove that, then you don't have to deal with the thing growing all the time. If you
Right.
just pluck off a branch, yeah, it feels good momentarily, but you haven't solved the problem. It's going to grow back.
Yeah.
So,
So can you tell me, like, this is all very interesting. How did you get into this line of work?
oh, love that question. Love that question. I really feel guided to this work, and I just recently did an interview with Mark Gober, and he writes a book about consciousness, and it's consciousness is so fascinating, and it's always been fascinating to me. So I do feel like there's an energy, a lot of people call it God, but I was working in the entertainment business, believe it or not, in Hollywood at the most powerful company there was, and it's still extremely powerful today, but it was CAA. And we had lawyers and MBAs working in the mailroom for minimum wage. That's how competitive this world was. This was, everybody wanted to be there. If you worked there, everybody wanted to talk to you. We represented everybody, the directors, the stars, the writers, everybody, musicians. And I was there for 2 years because I thought I wanted to go that path. And after 2 years, I was like, I can't be here anymore. It's just suffocating. It's a very I found it to be a very backstabbing, very superficial world. I didn't find that the product we were turning out was changing lives for the better. I mean, it was loosely entertaining, but it wasn't profound really at all. um, and the people that were um, populating that space, they weren't happy. Um, it was always about how much money you made and how quickly somebody returned your phone calls, what kind of car you drove, what kind of house you lived in. It was all very, very material stuff. And it just didn't vibe with me. So I really felt like I was suffocating and I had to get out. So I called my homeopath one day and I said, what would I do if I want to do what you do? Because I knew that he helped people at a profound level regularly. And when he told me, the lights went on. It's like God parted the clouds and said, this is what you're going to go do. And at that time, it was insane. I mean, to leave the center of the universe, which this place was regarded as, and all the doors were opening for me to work for the most powerful people in the business. Literally, those doors were opening. And I always say decisions are easy when there's no alternative. And I think one of the important takeaways is to really get in alignment with what your soul wants, what your spirit wants, because if you're living counter to that, you're going to experience dissatisfaction at a deep level. So I started school 2 weeks later at night, and then a quarter later, I gave notice. Ended up going to China and studied at one of the top 5 traditional Chinese medical hospitals for a year, which is very unusual. That was 2 years after Tiananmen Square. So it was a completely different world. I always recommend that Americans go live in a third world country for some period of time because we have a lot here that we take for granted. And as far as healing goes, gratitude is major.
Yeah,
So
totally agree.
I think we
Totally.
need to be extremely grateful for the blessings that we have. In fact, one of the interviews I just did was with Dr. Ming Wang. He escaped the Cultural Revolution many, many years ago. We as Americans, I think, need to be aware of why those things occur because there's certain conditions that occur and it's cookbook. And it happens, history tends to repeat itself if we don't learn from that.
So just to reiterate, so like you work with people that struggle with basically blocks in the mind. So if they're struggling with, say, procrastination, or they're struggling with some form of fear, or these things that hold them back. I know money is a big thing that holds a lot of people back. The um, money blocks the way we look or think about money. Have you've seen this in your practice with multiple clients?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. Money brings up a lot of issues for people, a lot of fear, a lot of worthiness issues. Procrastination actually goes back to worthiness as well. If we don't feel worthy, then when we try to take an action in the direction of bettering ourselves, our subconscious can come up all kinds of reasons why not to do that. It's more important to play
Hmm.
video games. It's more important to take a walk. It's more important to be distracted, but not get the job done. So that usually comes back to a worthiness issue. So the good thing about this work is I don't need to know. I don't need to take that 5 to 10% of my brain or use their 5 to 10% of their brain and figure things out. If you connect to the feelings, and it can be different for different people, it might be fear, it might be I'm not good enough. Sometimes you have to really dig. I mean, I worked with somebody for quite a while, very accomplished woman, and it was really, some people get very good at cloaking feelings. They don't want to feel them. So they're very, very deep, deep down in there. So I have to keep asking, and I have to ask different ways so that we can really dive down to what's the core feeling that's really tripping this person up. And when we finally got to it, and it took a while, because I kept looking at her going, no, that's not hitting home. There's an intuitive part of this. It's part science, part art. And it was unworthiness. And once we hit on that, it was very clear that was the issue. And then the whole session of healing just becomes incredibly transformative because it's like you're carrying around a 200-pound backpack that you don't even necessarily realize is there. And then all of a sudden you can let it go. It's like, Oh my goodness, everything feels so different. It's so much lighter. I had a gal recently I worked with, lifelong anxiety, just said it was in her family, just always, that was her baseline. She didn't know any different. And her thing was, I get a lot of people pleasers. Everybody else had to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, then she was living in horrible anxiety. And she texts me the next day. 'Cause the transformation, she's one of those wonderfully suggestible people. And the transformation was so fast. It was like half the time it normally takes. And she texts me the next day and she says, "Is this normal?" She says, "I feel stoned." I said, "Yeah, that's what relaxation feels like."
So a lot of this comes from first knowing, being aware of the thing that's really holding us down or bogging us down. Um, so do you help people find that thing that say that they don't know? They just feel fear or they have a
Yeah.
reaction to that, but they don't really know
Yeah.
that it's
So
fear
it's
that's
actually, yeah, thank you so much for bringing that question up because it's a really important clarification point. I don't need them to know at all why they have the problem because that's, again, the 5 to 10% of the brain figuring out. And if they could figure it out and could figure it out and solve the problem with the conscious
Mhm.
part, they would have already done it.
Yeah.
So it's something swimming around in the subconscious mind, and they don't even need to know where it came from. I just need them to be able to connect to the feeling. So what does the feeling feel like? What
Mhm.
is it fear? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it you mentioned money issues? I worked with a gallerist in Switzerland recently. She's on my YouTube, and I met her again at an advanced meditation retreat. And she said, "Hey, when I was an attorney, I had no problem asking for money, but as a gallerist, I represent all these artists, and I just don't feel okay asking for money." And we went back to the root, the cause, and the reason. Again, it's the subconscious mind that just takes us there. I'm a tour guide. I can't make anybody think anything they don't want to think or believe anything they don't want to believe. That's Hollywood. That's not what this is about. This is about just checking in, finding out what the root of that issue is. She found the root of it, found the story that was created in her mind, was able to rewire it. That's what this work is all about. And then she's back to selling. She's now selling paintings for $30,000 and $40,000 and thinks nothing of it and is having a ball. So
So
the
the
the the the effects tend to be multiple. If you solve the money issue, I'll mention another key example. I was working with a gal. She's actually a dear friend of mine. She does amazing oral surgeries, and she doesn't feel comfortable, or didn't. This was a few years ago. She didn't feel comfortable asking for money. So we went back to the root, the cause, and the reason. And again, it was in her case. In her case, this is something everybody can relate to so easily. She was doing her homework with her older sister. The older sister's even more incredibly off the charts smart. She's a leading medical person nationwide. So when they were doing their homework, the father said something disparaging to her, something that put her down, something that made her feel less than. So she interpreted it as, "I'm not worthy." So she carried that with her through her entire life. And so when she would go to ask for money for her services, which, that's how it works. You go through all this crazy training, you have all this crazy expensive equipment, you need to get reimbursed for it so that you can keep that going. Um, so anyway, once we fixed that, and now she's able to ask for what she's worth, stand on her own 2 feet, and not feel bad about that. I called her up a couple of months later and I said, "Hey, how's that working out for you?" And she says, "Oh my gosh, I go home with more energy. I'm a better wife. I'm a better mother." And I said, "Dollar wise, what's that worth to you to be able to ask for what you're worth?" She says, it makes about $10,000 a month more revenue.
okay, so people have these things that they're dealing with. Obviously, this comes from subconscious, like subconsciously. Sometimes we don't even know. It's something that has happened to us that we can't even really pinpoint. How much of that do you believe is subconscious versus conscious thought? Like, is there a there's not a balance, obviously. Do you think it's more subconscious than conscious?
I think it's almost entirely subconscious. And the reason I think that is because there's just all this belief system running around in the subconscious mind. If you become an advanced meditator, if you're able to get really quiet, and this takes a long time. So, meditation is something that I have all of my people doing if they're willing. Not everybody's willing. I've got,
Mhm.
men who are businessmen that don't want to do it. I have other men who are successful businessmen who love doing it because they realize their business just gets more successful as they do it. The more aware they are, the more peaceful aware they, the more calm they get, the better their business works. But not everybody. I'd have to say that it's not men or women. It depends on the person. But anybody who's willing, I have them do a good meditation program simultaneously, because the benefits to that, to your physical body, to your income, to your peace of mind, are tremendous. Now, that said, a lot of people who work with me are people who have done that for years. And while they gained benefit from it, they didn't resolve the issue that they want to resolve. One gal that I met with, and this is perfect for your show, I met her again through an advanced program. She had struggled with all kinds of things, I think 55 years, ran a business, and just she would go home at night and feel like a roving monster was driving her to consume sugar. And in her case, it was the sugar addiction. And I do work with people with all kinds of, addictions, whether it's sugar, whether it's overeating, whether it's, it can be drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, but it's all addictions are to change your state. It's to fill a hole, and you can't fill it with the substance. You can't fill it with shopping. You can't fill it with sex. You can't fill it with anything. You just have to get whole, heal, so that what you're choosing to bring into your world is an intelligent, balanced thing that nourishes you, nourishes the people around you, et cetera, et cetera. In her case, and this, each case is so interesting. And you go to my YouTube channel, you can check out the stories. In her case, she had trauma as a toddler, and it was recurring, and she had always suspected it, but didn't really remember it. She was able to go back and see what had occurred. The sugar was attached to the relief of the stress and the trauma. So in her tiny little scared brain, the sugar meant relief. So when she would go have a stressful day at work, she'd get home and that brain would be firing and wiring, sugar, need to reduce the stress. So it's that alarm system in there setting off. I always say that people are like an iPhone 14 operating on iPhone 5 technology. It just doesn't function very well. The programming from the past that's trying to protect you, trying to help you, is doing its best, but it just doesn't have the software. It hasn't caught up to who you currently are today. Most people today are some version of accomplished, lovable. All my people are they're lovely people. They're warm-hearted, caring people who probably don't give themselves enough credit. Who might not love themselves. I didn't love myself for I had been through all kinds of programs and stuff, and I didn't realize how much inward, honestly, self-hatred I was carrying around. And it's very destructive and very stressful to operate with those programs, and you have to do something. They don't just go away on their own, because we tend to think the same thoughts we thought yesterday, the day before, the year before. We're creatures of habit, and to change that requires a change.
Yeah, it's like we have to go on a journey. You have to make a decision first and foremost that you want to get better, because so many people just navigate through, they just wander through life, I feel like. And I did that for years. I mean, I was the worst at just wandering through life, taking it day by day. And it wasn't until I got on a self-growth journey that where I wanted to dig in and discover, like, where's this stuff coming from? What's causing me to act a certain way or get triggered by certain things or do certain things that I don't have control over? I always felt like I've been a disciplined person, but I think it doesn't pick and choose this thing. This is like something as human nature we struggle with. So I think it's very interesting to kind of dig into that, and your experience with the brain, and then also just how everything functions, how to go in and like start shifting mindsets, changing them a little bit. It's a journey, and I just encourage, like, everybody who's listening, like, first you have to make the decision to go on that journey. Like, I want to get better. I don't want to, like you said, is so important. You don't want to fill those holes with things that are destructive or toxic to you. You want to fill them with healthy, whole, and it's work. It takes a little bit of work, but in the long run, it is like so much more rewarding, and you live a very fulfilling life. Obviously, you believe in meditation. Meditation is not required for them to accomplish the success that you're seeing, but you do like to use it in conjunction. Did I hear that correctly?
Meditation helps us get quiet, and there's actually a lot of biblical references too to going within.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are constantly skirting, moving around, and not seeing what's within, I mean, Jesus said that we're capable of healing better than he did, but you have to go within and find this. And
Mm-hmm.
what I think is really amazing today is that the science is starting to show this. Joe Dispenza is doing a fabulous job of quantifying this. And the scientists are just scratching their heads and their jaws are on the floor going, oh my gosh, there are no drugs that do this. And it's all good. These aren't effects with a horrible list of side effects. And I do encourage, if anybody's taking a medication, it's a good idea to read the side effects, because they're not really side effects. They are effects. They're just unwanted effects. Because unfortunately, a lot of people go to the doctor, they get a drug to solve one thing, and it produces something else. And then they go to the doctor to get another drug for that, not even being aware and not being informed that the symptom that popped up is a result of the first drug they were on. And there's
Yeah.
countless examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you meditate, it's like things get better across the board. Your microbiome improves, your immune system improves, your mood improves, your sleep improves. They've mapped out a whole conglomerate of effects that you get from meditation. I was in the microbiome study of Dr. Joe Dispenza about less than a year and a half ago, and it showed that just by doing this really intense meditation for a week, you had measurably better microbiome, which is the bacteria in your gut, from the first day to the seventh day. That's huge. I mean, if a drug company could come up with a pill that accomplished that, my goodness, it would be a gazillion dollars.
Yeah, this is a real problem. I feel like in our culture, because in Western medicine, is that right?
Yes.
Western. Yeah, it's like be sure I'm saying that right. But this is a real problem because we do tend to just go right to pharmaceuticals, and a lot of times you don't even need pharmaceuticals for some of the things that you're trying to get healed from. I actually read a story, and I believe it was Joe Dispenza. I believe it was in his book, where he was talking about this lady who had cancer, and it was like stage 4 cancer. And she started meditating. Now, she meditated for hours every day, but her cancer was severe. But she would meditate and on that tumor and visualize it shrinking. I mean, how can you say that there's not benefit to this?
Oh,
Our
I think the science is in, the science is clear. It's actually in and clear about many, many, many different things. But unfortunately, if you turn on the TV set, and I don't recommend doing that,
I
if you're
agree.
watching mainstream media and there are advertisements for pharmaceuticals, you can be darn sure that the content is never going to say anything against those products, because that's just not the way advertising works.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's up to us. It's up to you, a listener. I'm saying it is up to you to do your due diligence when it comes to these things. But this is part of my heart behind my entire podcast, and everything that I talk about is, I don't want people to believe things because I believe them. Go do your due diligence and figure out, like, this stuff is real. Meditation and focusing and visualization, and our brains, we're not even tapped into the half of what we are capable of. We are really magnificent beings. We just don't know how to tap into it fully. But the more you
I'm
can
so
tap into it,
glad. I'm so
yeah,
glad you. So yeah, I am with you. And by the way, that story that you were telling about the person with the tumor, that isn't rare at all. If in fact, I have a portion of my YouTube channel is Full Quantum Fridays, and it's about people who have gotten over amazing problems very, very quickly. So, and they're not rare. If you go to any Joe Dispenza event, you can go on YouTube, type in Joe Dispenza and almost anything, and you will find somebody who's gotten over it like that. Sometimes it takes longer, and it's not, there's no guarantee, but and it's a real physical experience. It's not wishing, it's not make believing. It's raising the heart and brain coherence. Heart Math has been studying this forever. Here's a tip for your listeners. It's not expensive. You can get it measures coherence. It's from Heart Math. You can plug it into your iPhone or your computer. I think it's about $180, but it'll show you when you're in coherence. And when you're in coherence, your ability to heal is way better, way stronger. And this is why I encourage people, I guide people, I recommend a meditation path. Do whatever is right for you. And if it means just sitting in a non-guided way and being quiet, and the magic time to meditate, honestly, when you're the primary time to meditate is about 4 a.m. And I know not everybody can do that. And I'm not saying everybody needs to set their alarm clock and do that. But if you naturally wake up, in fact, I just worked with a client, and again, she's like, oh my gosh, what just happened? I feel so different. I'm already dumping the stuff that's no longer serving me. And one of her complaints was that she would get up, naturally at 4 a.m, but she would take the mental monkey mind route rather than, your pineal gland is giving you a gift. It wants you to wake up and just be still and quiet at that time. So let's take advantage of that and make that a gift. You don't have to do it for a long time, but if you're one of those people that happens to wake up at 3, 4 in the morning, which is really normal and common, take advantage of that time and just sit in delicious, calm, deep stillness, because that's really regenerative at a deep, deep, deep level.
So I have a question about that, because I meditate. I was not a firm believer in meditation until I went through my divorce, and I had a personal trainer recommend it to me, and I said, I don't even know how to meditate, but I just started doing it. I'm a proponent of just do it. Uh, but my problem with meditating early in the morning, I do wake up. I usually wake up between 3 and 4 every morning. But when I wake up and I don't get up and start moving, I will fall back to sleep. So I'm just curious,
Well,
do you have tips
yeah.
about that?
Well, I don't wake up at that time. I get up, I meditate, and go back to sleep. But I'm going back to sleep in a really calm, peaceful, blissed out state. Regular sleep is not always that peaceful because you've got dreams, and sometimes they're not all that pleasant. But that delicious, calm, coherent uh, meditation state is very, very healing. And
Mhm.
if you do get the thing from Heart Math that shows you what your heart and brain coherence is at, the more you can do the things that put you into coherence. That might be, sitting in nature with immense gratitude. It might be prayer. It might be painting. It might be, listening to music. It can be lots of things. Uh, Meditation is certainly one of the most powerful things that's been recommended, for millennia. Again, we're living in a very exciting times because there's now teams of scientists studying this stuff, and they didn't believe any of it. They at first they were like, okay, well, let's look at the stuff Joe Dispenza sent us. It's sitting in the refrigerator. We might as well take a look. We've got some time. And then when they started studying it, they're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. We've never seen anything like this. So now it went from being, another thing to study to like, we cannot wait to do the next study because we've honestly never seen results like this. Normally, when you do a scientific study, there's all kinds of outliers. You're looking for a trend, you're looking for statistical significance. They're going, we're almost embarrassed at the results that we're getting because it looks like we're making this stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it is the perfect intersection of science and spirituality. So we are
Exactly.
very spiritual beings, and whether or not you are of the Christian faith or whatever faith you are, I mean, to say that we're not spiritual is kind of crazy to me. But no judgment here, but I
Well,
do
and if
think
you
that
Gober's book, Mark Gober makes that case. I can't recommend his book highly enough. He's a summa cum laude graduate from Princeton. He wrote a book called The End of Upside Down Thinking, and it's very much on this subject because he was a materialist. When he graduated Princeton, he went to work on Wall Street. He wasn't happy. There's no point in living because you're just a bag of flesh. You're going to die, and what's the point?
right.
But if you're a spiritual being, you're part of something much bigger.
Hmm. So I this brings me to another question I was thinking while you were talking. What are your thoughts about connecting? Like you brought up nature. So, what are your thoughts about truly connecting in nature? I'm always curious to know someone like you, like what do you think about that? And I'm talking about, this idea of grounding or of, you know, breathing in the air, letting the sun fall on your face, like these things. What are your thoughts about that?
So, in my 23 years of acupuncture and teaching at UCLA and Emperor's College, people would say, "Well, how did people figure out acupuncture? It's did they get a splinter and then their back pain went away?" And I never thought any of that was true because they had a tremendous tradition of like the Shaolin monks that could go out and meditate in the snow and melt the snow around them. They were impervious to the cold. They lived in connection with these natural energies, and I believe they could see them, so they would document them and create the maps of the body, which also correspond to the high energy centers. They knew all this before it was measurable. They knew all kinds of things before they were measurable. So I think we in our world have gotten very, you know our trauma and anxiety is amplified because we're so disconnected from nature. Um, when a deer gets frightened because a wolf is after it, the alarm bells go off, they go into sympathetic nervous system, they're running for their lives. And then as soon as it's over, their body resets and it's like they're back to eating grass in 20 minutes. Humans, we're so wrapped up in this techno electrical world, which has its benefits. Um, as Jesus said, live in the world, but not of it. It's like you want to use the material, but not be so sucked into it that you're disconnected from what nature is, from Mother Earth, that is an amazing provider of all of our nourishment and energy and food and the sun, which, if you've ever been in a full solar eclipse, it's a miraculous experience. You realize, oh my goodness, without this incredible ball of energy up there placed exactly where it needs to be placed, life on the planet would be gone in seconds. I mean, it just would cease to exist. So there's this amazing balance and orchestrated thing going on around us, and to disconnect ourselves by just being connected to technology is not healthy. I just got a pair of shoes. They're called Earth Runners, and they're as barefoot as possible. So it's like using the feet on the ground the way it's meant to be. In fact, an instruction I would give people often if they were totally not grounded when they'd come into my office would be to go out and just walk, feeling the earth underneath their feet. For anxiety and stress and trauma, that's a beautiful thing to do, is just connecting to your breathing is another one. That's another connection to nature, which is honestly critical for, there's a lot of people doing amazing breath work. Joe Dispenza uses it. There's a guy named Leland who's got the Willful Warrior. He uses it. Wim Hof is famous all over the world for using it. Oftentimes I'll just say to people, hey, do the Wim Hof 11-minute breathing every day. And you can't do that and not powerfully change your state in, again, a more heart and brain coherent way.
Mm.
And if
That
you
is,
can work with somebody like me, great. If you've got the resources and you can go in and just get that filters taken out that are getting in your way, great. But however you need to do it, whether it's connecting in nature, meditating, some people can do it through prayer, but whatever that thing is for you that gets you into coherence, and allows you to get out of the sympathetic, alarm bells are going off all the time, and into the parasympathetic, where your immune system is functioning and your hormonal system is functioning, your digestive system is functioning. That's where health is, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
I, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I can attest, like, I'm a walking, breathing example of, I would have probably had a nervous breakdown. I went through a very stressful divorce, and that during that time was very stressful from multiple angles, not just the divorce itself, but just everything else going on externally. And luckily, I decided to give them a chance because I'm like, I've tried everything else, but I attribute that to the meditation, breath work, getting in tune spiritually with my creator, and working out. I have to throw that in there, but working out is huge too because it does so much. Your breathing and your it's funny. I do want to bring this up because I was reading something that this has been maybe a year or so ago of this man who he was like, he would subject his body to the elements. So nature, but to the elements. So like he would go out and sit in the snow. He would get cold and heat, and like, I don't remember if he was extreme and didn't have air conditioner or whatever, but it stuck with me. And when I started learning about cryotherapy, I was like, this is amazing because how the science, again, how it works, but again, how our bodies are made to kind of adapt. And we live in a world where a lot of times we're not adapting. We're creating these superficial environments, and it's killing our health. And then we're going and stuffing our mouths with drugs and food that's highly toxic, and all these different things. And it's heartbreaking, but then again, it's like it gives us some hope because there is hope. We can do the things that is going to feed us and help us heal. And then you have people like you who is, I think the first step is really getting in tune with your thinking. And if you step in and you can change the way someone thinks, subconsciously they don't even know there's an issue there, and then you can eradicate those thoughts or those actions. It's a magnificent trifecta of like health and setting you on a trajectory for true joy in this life and understanding life in general. So I love your work. I appreciate everything that you're
Absolutely.
doing.
Everything you said is spot on. I love the maxim, wake up, clean up, grow up.
I love it. I
And
love
and
it.
truly, when I'm working with somebody, I'm looking at all of those areas, because you're right. If somebody is putting junk in their body and their blood sugar is going all over the place, that person is never going to feel happy, whole, and stable. So those are all things that I look at, and because I have so many tools in my toolbox, I can find the right tool to solve the job, or get them to the next level.
Mhm.
Um, and I just need them to know, look, what feels bad, what is the discomfort, where do you feel it in your body, how big is it, what color is it, just, I'll just query about it, and they don't even have to know all the answers, but they just
Mhm.
need to know, I don't feel well, I know there's a better version of me, help me get there, and I will take care of the rest, as long as they're committed to the path, and really are clear that they're done. Like you said in the beginning, you have to decide, and the root word of decide is to cut, and you're cutting off going back to the past. You're deciding, I want something different, I want something better for myself, and that's where the power, that's the fuel that takes you down the journey.
Yeah, that's the power decision right there. We had a conversation before this podcast last week, and we were on the phone. I don't know, like 2 hours or something, talking about this stuff. So literally, me and you, we could go for hours talking about this. But I do want to, I want to ask you. So, like, if you have someone who like they are struggling with some of these things and they're kind of not knowing where to go, or even worse, they're just hopeless, where would you tell them to kind of start?
That's a great question, and I've got a great story for it.
I love
So
it.
I was at a yoga event, and a woman asked what I do. I told her. She says, "Oh my gosh, I know somebody who needs you." So I sent her my little 2-minute video, which is on my website. The woman cried when she saw it. She says, "Oh my gosh, there's hope for me." And she didn't believe there was hope for her. She kept going back to that. She's like, "I'm too broken. I'm too far gone. Can I really? Is there really any hope for me?" The worst social anxiety I've ever seen in my life. She couldn't make eye contact with me. She was terrified to come, terrified, and couldn't make eye contact with me at all. And so I just kept working with her. I kept being with her. And I just said, "It's okay. It's okay." It's like all I need is them to just acknowledge something doesn't feel good. I need them to be willing. The magic for her is that she was willing to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And she would go up like she was going up the side of an icy mountain, and she'd slide back down. And I'd say, "Oh, well, look how far you got. Have you ever gotten that high before?" "No, I've never done that before. I've never gone out and talked to people before." "Oh, well, that's great. Well, let's go there again." And so she'd climb back up the icy mountain, and then she starts to realize, "Oh, this icy mountain isn't so icy. I just made believe it was icy." And she had never been on an airplane before. She's now flying across the country, spending time with people that she barely knows. I mean, all these firsts for her. She lived a very isolated life. She didn't feel comfortable around adults at all. She's a nanny for kids, so she just felt comfortable around kids. I mean, and she's like, I'm watching her blossom in front of my eyes. Did she have a lot of setbacks? Yes, because those neural pathways, that old stuff, it takes time. It's like going to the gym for the first time. You have to work on getting those muscles in shape. And speaking of that, do you have time for one more quick story?
Yeah. Yeah. Share it with us.
So, my mother, and I just did a podcast with my mother. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks. She just turned 90.
Aw.
She's still going up and down ladders, very totally sharp, fit, beautiful, positive attitude. She was walking down the major street in Long Beach by the beach about a year ago. She hit a bike rack and fell and smashed her kneecap into 13 pieces. Well, anybody who works in healthcare knows that when an older person damages a bone like that, that can be the kiss of death. That can be the end of everything. So I said to her, I mean, thank God she got a surgeon that didn't fill her full of metal. He basically put a rubber band around it and crossed his fingers and hoped, and that was perfect. That's like all I needed. So I said, "Mom, I said, take a picture of yourself in the hospital. I know you look horrible, but this is going to be the before picture. You're going to be the fastest healing case on record in your age category." And she's already on board with all this stuff anyway. She's studied it forever and is totally on board. So I made her one audio to listen to as she fell asleep at night to speed heal that kneecap. And there's a lot of science that shows you can do this kind of thing. One gal that when I was training and all this stuff, she came in. She had the best surgeons in Los Angeles, leg full of metal from a fall. She had Kobe Bryant's surgical outfit working on her, but she was told, "Look, we've done everything we can. You're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, addicted to pain medications." And she's like, "No, no, 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 no. You don't understand. I'm a former athlete. That is not my future." She made a decision. She cut away that option and only focused on the positive outcome. She went and found somebody to help her reprogram the mind. That was when I was training with Marissa Peer, who's very excellent at all this. In fact, that's part of where I got my training. And she's now walking and planning on doing a triathlon.
Mm.
So when my mother damaged her kneecap, we made her an audio to speed heal that knee, to instruct that body to just get that bone healed ASAP, gave her all the nutrients, the homeopathic support. And then I made her a second audio because one of the things that's so damaging, especially when older people hurt a muscle like that, is it's immobilized for a period of time. While that kneecap is healing, she's not using those muscles. So I made her a virtual gym to trick the muscles into thinking they were working when they weren't, because there's science that shows that actually works. So she was going up and down stairs in just a matter of a few months, and made almost a 100% recovery, enough so she can still go up and down a ladder at
Yeah.
90.
Yeah. That's so powerful. I have a really good friend who went through a horrifying accident, and they told her she wouldn't walk, and she was an athlete as well. They told her she would never compete. She went on to the Olympia. She walked across the Olympia stage. So, I mean, and I've always admired her mindset. And I truly believe that when no one can define what we can or can't do, our brain, our mindset is the only thing. So, if we can change that mindset, like the things we are capable of is mind boggling, really.
And you had mentioned cold therapy, and that's another thing that I'm really into. I just did in fact, I'm about to post it on Instagram, a 7-minute bath in 47 degrees. And after I did that, I had such a good feeling that I went to the store and got 56 pounds of ice, put it in my bathtub, and went in there for 15 minutes. That was about 4 or 5 days later. So cold therapy is amazing. Wim Hof's story is that his wife committed suicide. He was miserable. To save his own life mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, he turned to the cold. Because cold, when you're in that kind of, you are not anywhere else. You are present. And wow, what a powerful state that can be, especially if you combine it with meditation. Because when I go into that cold, I just go into each energy center. I can feel them powering up, cleansing, especially the pineal gland right here in the middle of the head. That was just like go right there. And 7 minutes and 47 degrees is uh, not something people start out.
Mhm. Yeah, I worked at a med spa, and in this med spa they had cryotherapy, and I learned the science behind cryotherapy and the way that it burns calories and the way that it helps it helps you all your blood. It's like working out, but from a different angle. So all the blood is rushing to your internal organs, and then it's like when you get out, it's like an influx of blood kind of goes back, so it rushes back into your extremities and everywhere else in your body, and just anywhere that you're getting like that good rush of blood back and forth throughout your body. That's why working out is so beneficial, because it increases blood flow. This is why, like, give people like Tony Robbins teaching you to change your um, change your movement, change the way that you're if you're not feeling good, or you're not high energy, get up and create energy. you know
Absolutely.
it's so amazing when, again, it goes back to this intersection of spirituality. It's like we were created as amazing beings to be very spiritual, and to have all these things naturally, but yet we have so much science as well, and saying that these things are perfect for us. So it's really, it's a deep study, and it's awesome. So I just really encourage anyone that's listening, like, again, we've touched on a lot of different things in this last hour. I wish we had all day to talk, but I would encourage you, like, do your due diligence, figure out these things, and experiment with them, because you wouldn't know how cold therapy affects you if you weren't engaged in it. And
And
then
I
you see the
think going
health
in with
benefits
a
from it.
really playful, positive attitude, because we take everything so seriously, and
Mm,
the nervous system doesn't like that. I always say that the nervous system is like a puppy dog. So, you want to reward that little puppy dog, because when you reward a dog, it grows up to be this amazing protection, happy. If you sit and beat it with a newspaper all the time, it's going to cower in the corner and just not be the creature that it's designed to be. Well, our nervous systems are the same. So when you do something and, maybe you're not a perfect meditator right away. Wow, that would be so unusual.
right.
I'm joking
Right.
big time. People that
Yeah.
meditate 4 years, and it's like, you still have to do the discipline. You might have that muscle worked out, but there's going to be days that you're like, oh my God, this is harder than I remember it being. Or, it's just, It's constantly coming back to center. Keep coming back, but do it with joy in your heart. Do it with gratitude. If you're doing cold therapy, get to that happy place where it's like, oh, wow, I can be in this incredible cold and still be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a saying that in the athletes and people that I work with, that you have to enjoy the process, and it's so true with everything in life. Like we have to get, and it goes back to gratitude, which you said in the very beginning. If we can find the positive in everything, be thankful that we have the opportunity to feel cold. Be thankful that you have the opportunity for these things. Then you can learn to love the process of it and reap the benefits as well. And it doesn't get hard. I mean, it's so like I take everything back to working out. Working out doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. You're constantly, I've built a mindset to where I work out every day that I can. I take breaks because I can't work out every single day, but I love working out. I love it. I love the benefits of it. I love what my body does with it. I love going in the gym and just clearing my mind. It is a form of meditation. I laugh sometimes, but it's so true, man. Everything that you're talking about is so true. And I hope that, people will at least just go follow you and listen to some of your genius, because I feel like we just barely scratched the surface today of everything that you're doing and the impact that you're making with people and
Well,
helping them overcome some of the things that truly need to be overcome.
Well, it's an honor to be on your show, Amber. Like you said, we talked for, goodness gracious, over an hour and a half, I think, the first time we spoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a dream, but it's so magnificent. There's so much out there. And what's so cool about it is when you go on this journey, you find that people that aren't supporting you, environments that don't support you, habits that don't support you fall away. As your energy increases, you start to attract and interact with people that are at a more nourishing, more supportive, more exciting level.
I love it. It's alignment. It's called alignment, being aligned with the right people. And it's so true. It's so true. I believe energy kind of affects everything. And so if we can do that, we can get aligned with the right people, the right things, and the right mindsets, and truly begin to start that ball rolling in the right direction to live a very happy, healthy, fulfilled life, no matter what external things are going on around you, because you're present and centered and thankful and all the things. So
100%.
I thank you so much for coming on, and appreciate you spending this last hour with us.
Well, Amber, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. It's an honor to be your guest, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.